Hi class, today we are on Sex and Math Book 4, Lesson 99, and we are going to be constructing prisms together, which means we're going to be building prisms. So, to start with, I have this tissue box. It is a rectangular prism. So, you can refer to this to answer the next set of questions that I'm going to give to you. A closed cereal box. So the book says cereal box. In my classroom, I happen to have a tissue box. Same basic shape. Cereal boxes maybe a little bit wider, a little less, little more narrow on this side. But in a closed cereal or tissue box has how many panels? So sides, these. We call them faces when we're talking about geometric solids. How many panels or faces does a closed tissue box have? You should have said 6. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 faces. What words could we use to refer to these panels? So if I'm holding the tissue box like the top, hey, top, is one of the words we can use. The top is here. This is where the tissues would come out of if I opened it. What would this side be called? The bottom. What about these? We'd probably just call them sides. The book also says we could call them front, back, left, right. Okay? Although it might be left, right, the way you guys are looking at me. I'm not sure how the video works. Without a mirror, what is the largest number of panels that can be seen at one time? So this is perfect. You guys, now you can only see one side. But if I hold it like this, where this vertex or corner is kind of facing you, how many sides can you see? You can see 1, 2, 3. Is it possible for me to hold it so that you can see more than 3 sides? What if I do that? Nope, still only 3. If I turn it, still only 3. So the maximum amount of sides you can see without having a mirror behind it to show you the back would be 3 sides, or 3 panels, the book says. The next question, 2 panels meet at a fold or seam in the cardboard. Each fold is an edge. A closed cereal box or tissue box has how many edges? So we've done this before with our solids. We've got 1 here, 2, 3, 4. And then if we go back, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got the front and the back rectangle. But then 9, 10, 11, 12 total edges, or 12 total seams. 3 edges meet at each corner of the box. A closed cereal box has how many corners or vertices? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then backside 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 vertices, 8 corners in a rectangular prism. All right, so if I opened this up, it would look very similar to this. If I opened it up, we'd have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces, and they'd all be attached except for the section that we cut to open it. So this is what a flattened out cereal or tissue box might look like. We're going to use this today to create our own rectangular prism patterns. So if you're in my class, you've got this page. It's lesson activity 43 is part of your lesson plans for this week. So pull that one out. There shouldn't be anything printed on the back side because you're going to be cutting it. So you'll need to cut out the 2 shapes that are on that page. And let me give you a hint. The more precise you are with cutting, the easier this is going to be to build. So make sure you are not cutting on any dotted line. You see the dotted lines there? We're not cutting those. You're only cutting the solid line. You'll have to get the little triangles that are in between each piece. Cut around that. Pause the video now. Get those cut out. Cut as carefully and as precisely you can to the lines. All right, so now you will need a couple pieces of tape and these that you've just cut out. So let's start with the longer one. This is called a net, and it's what a three-dimensional shape looks like if you take it apart and flatten it all out, okay? The first thing we need to do is we are going to fold every solid line and every dotted line. Okay, so you can do that with me. I'm going to work on it here while you're working on it at home so that I can show you how and show you the example as I finish. Remember, you're folding the dotted lines as well as the solid lines. So it's a whole lot of folds here around your shape. So here I've got it started. See how I've just folded each of those flaps and then I folded these two sides up. Now I have to go do this side. Folding both the dotted line and the solid lines. Try to crease each fold pretty good because once all these folds are made, then it's pretty easy just to stick it into the shape that we want it to be. And ultimately, this is going to be a rectangular prism. Actually, I think this one's a cube because it looks like every single one of these shapes is a square. So that's going to create a cube. Okay. Ooh, sorry to shake that. I've got every line folded, so if I hold it, it kind of looks like this because I've pre-folded all of my, oh, I think I missed one. Let me get that one. I've pre-folded all of my solid and dotted lines there, okay? If you're still folding, pause now, and when all your folds are completed, hit play and we'll put it together. Okay, so I like to have these little flaps on the inside because I just think it looks neater when I put it together. It doesn't matter if they're on the outside, you're still going to end up with a cube. But I've got, so here we have two, and here I have one, and then here I have my wings, right? So I'm going to take this flap and hold it perpendicular to the bottom, to my base. Then I'm going to take those two wings and just kind of grab them and hold them there. And then I'm going to take a piece of tape, just a little tiny piece of tape, because this is a little tiny box. So a little piece of tape, and tape each side shut. So at this point, you might lose it a little bit. I'm pinching the flap on the inside there to the outside piece, and I've just put a tape right on that edge. Then I'm going to get another teeny tiny piece of tape and do the same thing to the other side. So hold it carefully with my fingers and then just tape the edge there. So that side, that one single side, that's done, and I've still got these kind of flapping there. So I'm going to take those two flaps now that I've finished here. Remember, if you are behind me, if you're not doing this as quickly, you can pause at any time, finish that step, and then hit play and you'll see the next step, okay? So once again, I like my flaps on the inside, so I'm going to take these two flaps and stick them inside so that the back of my cube is together. And again, two tiny little pieces of tape. And I'm just going to tape those edges. And this gets a little more difficult as you get it put together because you have to figure out where to put your fingers. So tape that edge. I've got my finger inside the box there so I can tape these edges. That made it a little easier. Okay, so now my box is completed and I just have a top here. I'm going to tuck in those flaps, close it up, and then tape my last 3 edges that haven't gotten taped yet. So there's one, and then I just have these 2 open ones. It'll hold together if you don't tape them, but just to make sure it's nice and solid, I'm going to put a piece of tape on every single edge. And then if we were doing this together in class, this would be the fun part because this is when my students start to roll their cube kind of like it's a die, because you have a cute little cube that you've just constructed all on your own. All right, now we're going to do the same thing with our rectangular prism, and I want you to notice the difference. All of the faces on this one were square, so I ended up with a cube. All of the faces on this one are rectangles. Even these 2 sides there are rectangles. So I'm going to end up with a rectangular prism. And it's the same process. We're going to fold every single dotted line and every single solid line. We kind of pre-fold them so that when it comes time to tape them together, they all fall right into place. So I'm just going through. You guys can do it with me. If you need more time, this is my 5th year teaching this. So this is my 5th time making these cute little boxes. You guys, this is your first time in 4th grade. You might need a little bit more time than I take to do it. So feel free to pause the video and take all the time you need. I'm almost done here, working on my last little flap. Okay, so once again, they're all pre-folded, so it's kind of funny looking. These 2 will flap right up like that. And once I have it pre-folded, I'm going to put it together just like I did the cube. So I like to start with my shorter, my side that only has 1 rectangle, and I tuck in those flaps and hold it together, and then use a teeny tiny piece of tape. So, little tape there. And little tape on the other side. Oh, I think my tape's just a little too big. It's sticking over the edge, so I'm just going to fold it down there. Okay? So now I have the one side. I'm going to go back to the other side that had the 2 rectangles, tuck in those flaps, and start taping those edges together. So there we go. So now all I've got left is my top. I'm going to tuck in the edges and then tape. Sorry, tuck in the flaps, not the edges. The edges you want to tape. The flaps you want to tuck into the box. And I got my last 3 edges taped. So now we have a cute little rectangular prism, little cube. We've got 2 shapes done. All right, so part of this lesson is this page as well. This is lesson activity 44. So we've just done 2 rectangular prisms, this one being a 1-inch cube. because each of the faces is a 1-inch square, this one being a rectangular prism. Now you need to have these cut out. Once again, the more precise you are, the easier this is going to go. Now that you've done it 2 times, you know what I mean. The better job you do cutting, the easier it is to fold it and tape it together and get a nice little box the way you're supposed to. So, cut these out very carefully. And once you're done, we'll start with the bigger one here. These rectangles are a little bigger than this one. It's the same process. We are going to fold every single dotted line and every single solid line. So all those flaps are going to get folded, and then all of the edges are going to get folded. There's the bell. Almost done here. Just folding my last couple flaps. This one's a little different because all the sides are not rectangles. So what shape do you think we're going to end up with when we put this together? I have 3 rectangles and then I have 2 triangles. Kind of looks like an airplane with wings. What shape do you think we'll end up with? Let's see. So in this case, my triangles are my wings. I'm going to kind of hold them up first, and then I'm going to take this single side, and you might have to hold it. I'm finding that I have to stick my finger in there to pinch that flap to the edge, and I'll hold it until I can get a little tiny piece of tape and stick it together using my tape. So now I have that one being held together. So now I'm going to have to pinch this side, I think, to be able to tape it together as well. Get another little tiny piece of tape. Okay. So now that's taped together, being held together. And these flaps, if you can see them on the inside there, I'm just going to push those in, because this side is going to come up onto those flaps. Now this one, I have a hard time getting this last flap on the inside. You can do it. In fact, there I go there because I was really, really careful about cutting it. Although I'm still having, oh, I got it. I guess that's just a piece of tape sticking out. So you can get it inside if you've been really careful in the past. I just tape it over the edge there, and that works just as well. Little tiny piece of tape. Make sure you've taped all of your edges together. I'm working on that right now. And then we'll be able to see exactly what shape this is. So this has triangular bases and rectangular sides. What do we call this? It's a triangular prism. So that's exactly what we have there, a triangular prism. We can add that to our collection of shapes. And then we've got one more that we're going to make today. Right here, same process. You start by folding every single line, every single solid line, and every single dotted line on your net there. The more precise you are, the easier it goes together at the end of this activity when we're trying to tape. So cutting, precision, but also folding, precision. One of the 8 mathematical practices is precision, which means you do things very carefully and very accurately. And we're getting a lot of practice with that today, aren't we? Okay, so I've got my net, everything's folded, it's pre-folded, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the last triangular prism. Looking at those triangles, what do you think this shape's going to be? Yeah, I'm thinking it might be a triangular prism as well. Oh, I missed one. I didn't fold that, which will make it difficult to put together. So there we go. I've got my two triangles standing up, and just like I did before, I'm going to fold that piece over and then just do one at a time, holding it from the inside so that I can tape my edges together. So I held that one and taped it. Now I'm going to hold the other one carefully and tape that edge together as well. And then we have this top flap. Let's see if I can tuck that one in. I can. Cool, I was very careful today. But just to show you in case you have trouble, you can also take that top flap and just stick it over the edge like that. I'm going to tape this one that way so that you can see it. And I just put a little piece of tape on the flap and then attach it. So just like that, my flap's sticking out, and that's okay. Okay, taping my last two edges here. And I have another triangular prism, just a different shape triangle. Notice that's more of an equilateral triangle versus this is a right triangle. But both of them are considered triangular prisms because they have triangles as bases and rectangles or squares for their other three sides. All right. So there are a bunch of questions using these shapes that I want you to go through today. You do not have to write down the answers, but I will be asking you these questions when I see you in person. So please make sure that you are familiar with the answers. They all have to do with the faces, the edges, the vertices, counting them, but also describing what shape they are. So if you look in your book on page 625, that is your lesson practice. It is probably the longest lesson practice in this textbook. But like I said, you don't need to write down each answer. Just make sure that you are able to fully describe each of these shapes when I see you later this week, because I will be asking you about them. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again soon.